If you're someone who struggles socially, either with anxious thoughts or you simply find it difficult to hold a conversation, then interviews are going to feel pretty overwhelming. So hopefully everything we're going to go through in this video is going to really help. We're going to run through the gold standard strategy of interviews, which I've personally helped hundreds of people use to bag jobs that they absolutely love. We're going to go through every single step all the way through from receiving the invitation to interview to how to follow up after the interview, so that despite how scary that whole process is and the individual aspects feeling overwhelming, that we can break it down, pluck out aspects that we can take control over so that you can also get a great job that you'll love. I also really struggle socially and find the whole interview process particularly difficult myself. However, with the strategies that I'm about to outline, plus a couple more, I've managed to nail the past few interviews that I've had to do and actually ended up in leadership positions in my current career and a previous one, and I'd love to share with you how you can do the same. The reason that I put this together in the first place is back in about 2019, I was helping a chap back in the UK who was really, really nervous about an upcoming interview. So we're making notes, jotting down some things about how we can manage the process from start to finish. This evolved and eventually turned into this 8-page document that I developed into a full interview blueprint. We're going to run through the steps really quickly, and then we're going to pluck out the individual aspects of that you can control, manage, and feel better about so that you can nail an interview too. Firstly, you're going to receive an invitation to an interview to attend. You're going to reply to this really politely and pick a day, a time, and a setting that's going to work for you. Next, you're going to research both the job and the company that you're applying to so that you can talk confidently about both in the interview. Then you're going to prep the interview questions that you anticipate coming up and practice them over and over. You're going to make a travel plan. You're going to prep your wardrobe. You're going to nail the meet and greet with whoever greets you on arrival. You're of course going to nail the interview questions. And of course, you're going to follow up with your interviewer as soon as you get home, as well as a couple of days after. So hopefully, even by breaking down those steps, the whole interview process from end to end is hopefully now feeling a little bit more manageable. So let's dive into the individual aspects you can manage and feel better about yourself. The first couple of things that you can do to make the interview feel better is to pick a day, a time, and a setting that's going to work a little bit better for you and make you feel a little bit more comfortable. What this could look like in practice is the day of the interview. Try not to pick it, especially if you're an anxious person, on a day that you're supposed to be at work, trying to fit it in before work or on a lunch break or just after work when you know you need to be home with the family. Try not to pick it on a work from home day, for example, so that you're not conscious of somebody watching your activity at a day job while you're away at the interview. And also try not to pick a day where you're going to feel unprepared. If it's too soon, give yourself a little bit more of a runway into the interview so that you can properly prepare and feel confident going in. The next thing would be the time of the interview that you can help manage. So if you're a morning person or an afternoon person, try and play to your strengths and when you generally feel best in yourself. For me, I'm a morning person. I just feel a little bit more alive, alert, a bit more chatty in the morning, and then things tend to simmer off through the day. But you may be the complete opposite. Just try and pick a time that you're going to feel at your best. How about considering the setting of the interview and how we can manage that? A lot of times you're not going to have a say over this. You'll have to meet the boss or the interviewers at their main office, for example, so you can present yourself and for them to show you around the place. However, in a few circumstances, if it's a smaller business or if it's someone you may know already that's going to be interviewing you, you could maybe suggest to them that you meet them at a local cafe that you're familiar with, that you feel comfortable with. You could maybe even say, hey, let's take a walk on your lunch break and you can grill me on that walk. There's all these little things that you could perhaps tinker with the setting to make you feel more comfortable so that you're not sat in front of that wall of faces that puts fear into so many people. Just think about how you could amend that and what would work for the company and still work for yourself that you can get away with and suggest when you get back to the invitation. Something that's really helped me personally in the past is trying to talk to the person that I know will be interviewing me before I turn up on the interview day. Easier said than done, but if you can, try and find an excuse to give them a call or jump on a video chat with them or even swing by their office really briefly to try and meet the person that's going to be interviewing you before you have to turn up and meet them for the first time. That can feel quite overwhelming for a lot of people and put them in a position where they're not going to be able to be themselves. However, just having a quick chat in whatever format before the interview can help you feel a little bit more at ease so you can quote unquote perform a bit better and just be yourself in the interview and probably enjoy it a little bit more too. The next thing that you have a huge amount of control over is how much preparation you do for each and every interview. A little bit harder, granted, if you've got a few interviews lined up, but try and spend as much as you can per interview doing as much research as you can. So that's research into the role itself, getting to know exactly what you're going to be doing and how you'd be able to add value yourself into that role so that you can speak confidently about that in the interview. Also going deep on the people who are going to be interviewing you, try and get an understanding of what gets them going, as well as the people who you're going to be potentially working alongside. What does the actual team that you're interviewing for do? What are their goals, and how could you integrate and slot in the best possible way? And finally, the company itself. What are they going to be excited about when they interview you? What news have they had come out? What updates? What are they going to be excited to talk about with you? What does the company do? What are their long-term goals? What are their mission statements? What are their values? And how can you align yourself to that? By simply having all of that research done and practiced and prepped, you're going to feel so much more at ease when you turn up on the day. You're going to feel like you know these people before you even get to the interview, and you're just going to be able to be yourself and talk about yourself in the most confident way possible. Now, for the interview questions itself, which are probably the most overwhelming aspect of the whole process for people who have a little bit of anxiety to think about. So the misconception is that you're just going to be hit with a wall of questions that you have no idea what they're going to be, and you're going to be caught off guard in several occasions. However, if you actually think about the place that you're going to be interviewing in and the role that you'll be doing and the people that are going to be sitting in front of you, you can generally predict what the questions are going to be based on what the general questions are in interviews, plus what the industry specific questions are going to be, plus what's important to the company. Generally, there's going to be about 10 questions in an interview that are going to come up time and time again. Yes, they're going to be worded in a different way, but if you can spot the themes, due to the preparation that you've done, you'll be able to formulate and have off pat an answer to give to them really, really confidently. Now, the best way to prepare for those questions is obviously to have some foresight onto what you can expect to come up. If you're completely in the dark and have no idea where to start, on my website in the DIY toolkit, I've listed the 10 questions that generally come up, how they'll generally be worded in 2, 3, or 4 different ways, how you answer them in terms of a dot point structure, and then some example answers. So jump on there if you're really unsure. However, you can do this yourself. Put together about 10 questions that you anticipate to come up, how they could be slightly differently worded, what the themes are, what you think you should say, and then start practicing those questions out loud so that when you get to the interview day, you've already had those formulations, you've already had those trials of answering those questions, so that when it starts to come out of your mouth, it just starts to roll. I like to use the rule of 3, for example, when practicing for interview questions. So by that, I mean asking yourself the question once and then giving yourself 3 opportunities to answer that question. On the first, you're going to be fumbling around your words. You're not going to know what to say. You're going to miss details. You're probably going to have to skip back. The second time, you're going to be flowing a little bit more. And then the third time, you should have a really good formulated answer that you can just then repeat, remember, and commit to memory. So just keep doing that and do exactly what I'm doing now. Just talk to a camera, record yourself, play it back, see what you could have worded better, see how your cadence of speaking was, see what you're doing with your body language, and just try and tweak things so that on the day, things are going to feel a bit more natural and rehearsed in a sense, so that you can just give them really confident answers and absolutely nail those questions that are going to come up. Now, the next thing is the travel plan, which for people who don't have any realm of anxiety is just not even a thing. They're just going to roll out of bed. They're going to get to the interview. They're going to try and get there a little bit early. They're just going to wing their way there. But if you're a little bit like me and a bit on edge before interviews, you're going to want to know exactly where you're going. You're going to want to know where you're parking, how you pay for the parking, how far the walk's going to be to the place, all of these things. So what I suggest is doing a thorough travel plan, which might be overkill, but I think it would really, really help in terms of just giving you a structure and a plan for the day that you can just follow dot by dot. Even by attending the interview place in person before you actually turn up could be really, really valuable. When I came to Australia the first time, when I first came to Australia in 2020, I actually did this ahead of an interview when I was living up on the East Coast. I was really nervous about the interview. I really, really wanted the job. So I did a practice travel run the day before, parked in the exact space that I thought I'd park on the day. It was after hours, so I crept around, had a poke in the office and thought, yeah, I'm probably going to be sitting there and that kind of thing. And it just helped put my mind at ease so that when I did turn up on the day, everything just felt familiar. I knew where I was going. I knew where I was going to park. It just all came naturally, as opposed to being stressful on the day, which a lot of people like yourself might find a bit overwhelming too. Another thing you can do is to dress confidently. So again, try and plan your wardrobe a little bit. My general advice for dressing for interviews is to go one step more formal than you expect the people interviewing you for. So some random examples here. If you're going for a security guard job, just off the top of my head, security guards tend to wear a polo shirt, smart trousers, and maybe work boots. So for that interview, you probably attend with a formal shirt, no tie, chinos, and some shoes. That way you've gone one step more formal than the person interviewing you. You're not trying to one-up them by any means. You are trying to assert a little bit of authority for yourself, not over them, but kind of alongside them. But what that's going to do is just give you an air of confidence. And that's the other thing, just to pick an outfit, pick a wardrobe selection that you're going to feel most comfortable in. If you feel a little bit claustrophobic in a necktie, or if you don't like the tight trousers that you've got that you usually wear to weddings, try and pick something else. Pick something that you're comfortable in that's going to fit the brief in terms of formality. Try it on, obviously, before you go. Lay it out the night before, and then that's another thing taken care of. Another thing that I found really beneficial in the past is to actually try and talk to somebody that I know before I turn up to the interview itself. The main reason for that is that if you are turning up to the interview and it's the first person you've spoken to that day, things aren't quite clicking, especially if you're a little bit of a socially awkward person like myself. So either by calling someone you know, or popping into a shop and grabbing a water and having a chat with the person behind the checkout, just gives you a little bit more confidence, gives you that slight spike in, I don't know what chemical it would be, maybe adrenaline, that just gets you going for the day and you feel a little bit more social and yourself when you turn up to the interview. And the second reason is, the worst thing is, especially if the interview in the morning, is that you turn up to the interview and you open your mouth and you're croaky because you've not said anything yet that day. So just by having a conversation with someone before you turn up just gets everything warm, gets things flowing, and you'll feel a little bit better. Now, this is becoming quite clear that I'm an overthinker even going through these steps here, but the next thing is to try not to fiddle in the interview. Ideally, you're going to grab yourself a water or accept a drink on the way in. That gives you something just to take a pause when you're asked a question. So if they ask a question, you can kind of, give it a bit of thought, have a sip of water, take your time with the answer. It's beneficial to have something like that in that instance. But what I'd encourage you not to do is to fiddle in the interview. Often people take in pens and props and all this kind of stuff. Just try not to fiddle with anything. I actually really recommend taking a pen and a notepad, by the way. It makes you look really switched on, but that's another video. But try not to fiddle. Try not to have a pen in your hand that you're like clicking, and try not to be fidgeting and touching your face. Just try and be relaxed, be open. I tend to put my fingers under my legs. It just stops me grabbing things and fiddling and playing and doing weird things with my arms. Whatever you need to do, try not to fiddle and just basically face the questions. Try not to use your hands or any props to try and kind of guard yourself away, and you'll feel much better just facing those questions head on. The final recommendation I've got for people who are feeling slightly socially awkward or anxious around interviews is just to be completely honest in the interview, and also to be yourself. Firstly, around honesty, if you try and BS your way through the questions, or if you try and add flavor and color to your experience, and that you, at the back of your mind, think that somebody might come back to you on one of those points, and you're going to have to make sure you remember what you said, that can be quite anxiety provoking in itself. And also to be yourself throughout the interview. Interviews can be long. They can go for half an hour, even longer in some cases. So it's going to be a really hard act for you to keep up if you try and turn up as somebody who's uber confident or uber loud or something that you're not. So I'd really recommend being honest and being yourself through the interview. Essentially, they're hiring you. You wouldn't want them to hire you anyway based on the persona or dishonesty that you've given in the interview anyway. So being yourself, being honest, you're going to feel a lot more at ease, and you're hopefully going to nail the interview as a result. So there we have it. There's my complete guide to interviewing as a socially anxious or awkward person. I sincerely wish you all the best in firstly getting interviews. I know it's so hard to get your foot in the door at the moment, so hopefully that's coming through for you. And secondly, hopefully that helps in giving you just some things, some aspects of the interview that you do get offered that you can manage, that you can make your own, that you can feel at ease about. As usual, YouTube's going to pop another video above one of my shoulders. Hopefully it's one of mine. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.